On this episode of the Camp Owners Podcast, it is part 2 with Allie and Marie from Camp Foley in northern Minnesota. We are talking with them about the family transition that they have recently undergone with having Marie retire and Allie at the helm of Camp Foley. We talk about what that has looked like as a third generation entering into that leadership, how long they've been sharing those duties, what that has looked like, things that they have learned, and tips for those that are thinking about having that in their own family at their own camp. We hope you enjoy it and really just love the female leadership and perspective from Camp Foley. Take a listen.
This is the Camp Owners Podcast from Go Camp Pro, exploring best practices and issues that professionals in the private camp industry face every day. You can find our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod.
Celebrating 30 years, CampBrain camp management software not only provides a great tool and caring support for your best ever workdays, but a delightful registration experience for parents. Discover what more than 1,800 camps know and how you can love your software too. Visit campbrain.com/ownerspod.
Activity schedules are the backbone of every camper's experience. If there's a staffing change, it's really hard to find a person that knows your camp and the nuance your schedule takes. Come check out Camptivities to learn more about our scheduling tools designed for camps by camp people. Find out more at camptivities.com. Welcome to the Camp Owners Podcast, a space for camp owners to talk about the unique aspects of camp ownership and get inspired by each other. We are going to sit down with camp industry experts, leaders, and fellow camp owners to hear how the camp dream transpired for them, learn from each other, and discuss some of the biggest issues in the private camp industry. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kelly Schuna. I am the co-owner and executive director of Hidden Pines Ranch, located in Stillwater, Minnesota.
And hi, everybody. I'm Howie Grossinger, and I'm the co-owner and director of Camp Robin Hood in the suburbs of Toronto and Camp Walden, situated in Northern Ontario. Welcome to the Camp Owners Podcast. If you are looking to find and subscribe to our podcast, you can either find us online at gocamp.pro/ownerspod or by searching for us in your favorite podcast app. Finally, if you're listening to this and think it would be useful for other camp owners or aspiring camp owners in your circle, please feel free to send them a note to listen. A huge shout out, of course, to Camp Brain and Camptivities for continuing to support our show. We intended this whole conversation to, in fact, have two components to it because we intentionally talked about a milestone. And often in our industry, these milestones come about because of the succession and transition from generation to generation. People come back often because of the continuity of what we do. And so I was curious with Kelly to dig into a little bit about your own transition, right? We have had so many great conversations with people who've done the transition or succession of camp in so many different ways. So we're really excited to explore this. And I thought that we would kick this off, Allie and Marie, and with our curiosity of just sort of the amount of time that Foley has been in your family. And then let's broaden that discussion into digging into the details of those incredible chapters you're now experiencing and how one flowed into the other, and maybe share some of the learning you did a lot along the way, because we know in this industry that just because transition was done from an earlier generation to another doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done exactly the same way. And it really depends on what's happening at that current time in a camp's life. But I wanted to turn it to you. I'm so glad we can continue this conversation. So let's talk about your family in Foley and the leadership of your family at this wonderful camp.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping not to transition like we transitioned from the into my generation, because it was all involved with deaths in the family. So that's not like I had a good way of how do you do it when people are still living. But anyways, to go back, my dad was founded by Father Foley in 1924. And my dad was actually a camper and then a counselor with Father Foley. And in his final year at his parents in 1949 to buy camp from Father Foley. And that transition, it went from kind of a smaller facility that was much in need of a lot of repair and everything to, fortunately, my grandparents, my dad's parents had the financial means to really help take camp into another generation. And so it went from Father Foley to my dad in 1949. It became incorporated. And at that point, there's just a lot of facility growth and a lot of buildings, enrollment, and everything. You just hit a ton of growth with all of that. It was a corporation, and so in that corporation, owned it. The stock part of it, corporate part of it, was left with the death of my mom and my death of my dad into myself and my two siblings. I had two brothers. And so that involved another degree of stress in many ways. I think after going through that experience of the corporation and different things and some aspects that happened with my brothers in camp and all of that, I decided that that's not how I ever want to transition anything. I think I still have nightmares about all of those years. And I think that losing my father on this 50th anniversary of camp and then going and celebrating was very difficult. And I was like, I don't want a celebration like that. That was not good. So you just have these things in your mind that this is not how you want it to happen. And then when my mom left and passed away, I was 28 years old. No concept. I wasn't ever going to run camp. I never wanted to do this. And you think of just being, and she left camp the day that the campers arrived in 1980. So that was just really like, oh my gosh. I mean, here's a young director that has never, ever even ordered food. I ordered enough chicken for 2 years. I mean, it was that experience. It's like you were thrown in and you either survived. And I had a great leadership team. And like we would just sit on the floor of the office, cry and laugh and just say, what do we need to do tomorrow to survive? It was this survival summer of 85. So that transition, it was baptism by fire. This is what you're going to do. And you learned a lot. We got through those difficult years. You pulled it together because of the kids, right? It's all because of the kids. And so you can put a great face on. You can go out there. We're all camp directors. We know how to do that. So that was the transition that I experienced of just like, if someone had asked me where something was, I had no clue where it was. I was like, well, we'll figure this out. So that's kind of my background. I have been fortunate, though, in this next transition to be working with Allie. And I think that when we became kind of more co-directors, I think the best decision we made was probably to divide the responsibilities and each of us take certain roles and not work together with everything. Meaning like she really took over all the hiring as an example, in the staffing, in the staff training. And not that I never did an interview in those early years. I did, I could fill in, I can still do staff training, but it was kind of like she assigned that to me. Does that make sense? And so
For sure.
in the roles, what we did, I think that we also learned that we both have opinions, like two different people. We both have different ways of doing things. But I think that you could always do the same. You could do something well in two different ways. And you have to accept that it can be done well in a different way than the way that you would do it. And so for me, it's been a lot of just letting go and watching Allie and other people just do this beautiful work at camp in their own way and using their experiences and using their personalities. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but
Well, I just know Kelly just loves all this. I know this is so, I have I can identify with a lot of what you've described myself, but I know that Kelly, I'd love for Kelly to share her thoughts on this as well.
Oh, I was just going to say what amazing wisdom for Marie to be at such a place to say everyone can do it just differently, but for her to reflect on what a beautiful way they're doing it. I love that. And I also love the very clear on who's doing what and very clear responsibilities sounds like the key to success versus trying to do everything together. So, Allie, we heard from your mother about kind of her transition into camp. So, talk to us because, yeah, I am curious. I was not born at camp. My kids weren't born at camp. So, I am always curious and having teenagers right now. When did you decide that you wanted to be at Foley full time and make it your career? Your mom said that wasn't what she wanted, but it ended up being what she was served and did amazing with. But how was that for you?
Yeah, I think similar story in that I went to college for something very different, kind of had ideas that I would go do something else. I always worked at camp. I always loved camp. And I think, and actually the alumni that were in camp in 1989 or 87, whatever it was, but for our 65th, when they put in stuff in the time capsule and then we pulled it out, several of them, one of the questions on there was like, what do you think camp is going to be doing in 2024? And a lot of them wrote that they thought Allie was going to be running camp.
Wow.
Which was wild because I was 5 years old at that time. So just that apparently other people were seeing me at that point potentially with the desire or the ability to do what I do now. But I think I definitely put the brakes on for a while and had thoughts of going and doing other things. And situationally, like in 2008, we had some changes in our family. And so I think around then is when I kind of started to be like, well, I think this is going to be what happens. But it probably wasn't until 2010, 2014, after I had really worked full time at camp for almost 10 years, that I think kind of saw the writing on the wall that this is actually what I wanted to do versus what I felt obligated to do. And so it definitely took a while, but yeah, I'd say that's about, yeah. And I think to Marie's point about, she's always been great about giving me the responsibility and allowing me to kind of take certain things and run with them and saying go for it if that's what you want to do. And I think that's been part of our working dynamic for a long time now. And so this whole transition of having her retire and all that doesn't seem as daunting because we've always sort of had that relationship where we have very different leadership styles and personalities and things like that. So I think they complement each other well, but they're quite different. If you ask any of our staff or campers, I think they would probably say that's true about us. So it's been fun to kind of utilize both of our skill sets over the last few years. So
I feel, Allie, that you said it so well. The children of camp owners grow up in an environment where you share your mom with everybody, right? And there's a time capsule that says Allie is going to run this place one day, right? So, but this concept of what you want and what you feel obligated I think is a very real thing for the kids of camp owners, because the emotional ties of camp for so beyond your own family are so deep that you kind of feel like, hey, I sort of feel like gotta keep this going because everyone is so connected to this place, but you gotta somehow go through your own journey of exploring other things or really determining. I just think it's a kind of an overlooked thing that we as parents of kids young adults who want to do this, or just the whole idea of, do you want to keep it in the family, is this really important want obligation. I say that all to was there a moment in time where you looked to Marie and said, I think I'm ready? Did she look at you and say, well, we've been working together for 10 years. Should we do this? Or I'm just curious about clarifying want and obligation a little bit over what I think is a long transition, right? Because it wasn't like you woke up. It sounds like you've been in the business, you've been working it.
Yeah, I don't honestly remember a eureka light bulb moment that happened between the two of us at all. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
But
I remember my mom at one point just saying, Marie, you have to decide, is this what you want or is it not what you want?
Right.
And I think there's a big difference of feeling obligated and to the point when your heart and your mind are saying the same thing and you're saying, this is what I want to do. And I think mentally it's a good, healthy, you just don't feel burdened by it then. You just feel this is what I want to do is different than being told this is what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she was patient with me. I am somebody that needs my time away, and I still do from camp. if I feel trapped, that's when I start to get the most stressed out. And so when I was younger, I often would take 2 or 3 months off in the fall and go do something different or travel and so she was very patient with me, especially those first 4 to 6 years as I was coming out of college. And I think I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I would guess that part of that was understanding exactly what you just said, Howie. Like, I had to come to that realization myself and be given the I guess the extra leeway to do that on my own versus being told. And I also have siblings, and they've all worked at camp and have been part of this process a little bit too. And 2 of the 3 are still pretty connected with our work at camp and help out in certain ways. And so that's also, and they're quite a bit younger than I am. So I think that's added a layer. Like, it wasn't fair for them to choose camp or not based on my timeline as someone who's 8, 10, 12 years older than them. And so that's also added like a little bit of a like dynamic to like our succession planning, I think, has been just conversations with them as well about what they want their role to be at camp and having that be a little murkier simply because of their age. So.
And did you utilize anyone? Like, I know Howie has someone that he's used with that transition process. Did you utilize an outside consultant? I probably think a therapist would be helpful, but like, did you maybe both? Yeah, I don't know, but did you utilize anyone or a business consultant, or did you just really navigate this authentically, the 2 of you?
We did twice. The first time we started it was probably 10 years ago or something, and got to a point, and to be honest with you, I think Allie mentioned it, it was really hard when you still had kids still in college and not even knowing what they really wanted. And Allie, more the age difference was hard at that point. And I didn't really feel we gained much from the consulting, and we worked with attorneys. We got stuff, never signed, just never completed it because it didn't feel right. And so then we started again. I think COVID put it a little bit, a couple of years behind us, probably doing some of this. And we started again. And this time we're getting further with it. As Allie said, it's a process. It's still being merged on. Yes, I'm retiring from the camp operation, but I think it's going to take me a whole year to finish up some of the things that we started in
On the business side.
on the business side of it, in this whole secession thing. And I think the 100th anniversary got hit with that. And you just have so many hours of the day when you're running camp and the 100th anniversary and doing this, and it all seems like a full-time job. But so yes, we are utilizing other professional people.
But to the 100th anniversary thing, it was also, we didn't talk about this in the program, but it was a pretty beautiful time for us to be able to say thank you to Marie. And my sister read some stuff, and some of the alumni spoke and stuff. So like, that was nice also to kind of use it. She would never let me throw her like a big retirement party of any kind. There's not a chance that would happen. So it was nice to be able to bake that into the 100th a little bit and allow time for our alumni and stuff to say thank you and stuff too. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Allie, we call that asking for forgiveness, not permission when it comes to those things, right? That's what we do for our parents, right? Like
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah, I went behind her back to have my sister write up something to read, and had our office administrator help us with some stats and things like that. So we did some behind the scenes work to make sure that she got her due.
Every year, it's the same thing. Lots of hours spent working on the daily schedules, only for there to be mistakes, missed activities, and lots of stress. Why is it so difficult? There's got to be a better way. And there is Camptivities, an activity scheduler made specifically for camps. Group scheduling or camper scheduling, we've got you covered. Different day schedules, no problem. Auto scheduling, elective scheduling, batch scheduling, schedule the way that works for your camp. With over 60 reports, you'll be able to see the data easily. Now's the time to implement a better way to schedule. Go to camptivities.com and set up a time to chat. Make activity scheduling easier, less stressful, and more efficient. We'd love to show you the next big thing in camp, so don't wait. Start the onboarding process now when you have the time. Let us help you get away from your desk and back out in camp. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat.
Celebrating 30 years, CampBrain camp management software not only provides a great tool in caring support for your best ever work days, but a delightful registration experience for parents. They take pride in building long-lasting relationships through their incredible support and care they show to each client. And don't take our word for it. Cassandra Parker, Director of Campers and Families at KE Camp, shares, "We love customer service at CampBrain because everyone's always happy and helpful. There's never a time that we are waiting for answers." CampBrain is not only focused on your current needs, but for the next 30 summers and beyond. They're continually refining their solution to deliver exactly what camp owners need now and will next. From SMS texting to integrated payment solutions and more. Discover what more than 1,800 camps know and how you can love your software too. Visit campbrain.com/ownerspod.
Yeah.
I wanted to just for a moment dig into a little bit about, Allie, where do you see yourself going in operational changes now that Marie is pulling away from certain things? I mean, have you over your years full time, are you digging in to the business stuff? Are you doing projections? Are you an Excel spreadsheet person? Are you how are you looking at your role transitioning from a strong woman role model like your mom to being able to be a figurehead of camp? And how are you envisioning taking on the multitude of hats that camp owners obviously wear? I'm curious about, does business in your background? Are you learning it? Have you learned it? I'm just curious about any of that, because I think there are a lot of people listening who are in similar positions wanting to what should I dig into? So much of what we do as owners is learning on the job. I mean, ask your mom, ask me, ask Kelly. There's a lot of things that we were never trained for that we ultimately learned. I'm curious about your interest and how are you navigating this kind of shift in responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a very curious person by nature. So I think the learning and all that is right up my alley. I love taking a new project on and launching myself full on into it. So that part is easy and natural for me. Definitely not a spreadsheet person. I have a younger brother who, when people ask what his job is, we say he's in spreadsheets. I don't actually know what he does, but that's not me. In meetings and stuff that Marie and I have, she's often the note taker and I just view the info. That's our dynamic generally. So I'm kind of the big idea person. But I think to answer your question, Howie, slowly, I'd say I'm being very careful about, we're at a spot right now where we have to do some hiring for an assistant director and figuring out what else we need, because we're losing a full-time employee also, and then another full-time employee. So we have two really full-time employee spots that we have to kind of fill for. And so trying to think okay, what do we actually want and need and what can be filled by certain people. One of my brothers has an interest and has been helping us out. He's a lawyer on sort of that part of the business. And I'm still trying to suss out of him. He just had a baby and everything too. So trying to suss out of him a little bit what he wants his involvement to be and kind of where I can utilize him if he so desires to do that. So I think slowly is my answer. I don't know that I have any huge implementations that I am going to try right away. I think my goal is kind of this year to kind of try a lot of the small stuff. And we went to a little bit of a different pricing model. We went with option pricing this year. So that was kind of something I had always sort of wanted to put my hands in and try out. And who knows if it's going to work, but that's kind of one little thing that we've kind of started now. But I think just kind of slowly trying to figure out what our needs are has been my model so far. So.
Because you said, Allie, or your mom said that with that division of duties, you were really taking the helm of staffing, hiring staff, training. What would you say were Marie's side, her division of duties that you're having to figure out?
Yeah, insurance and budgeting and some things like that. I've been involved in the budgeting for forever. Besides exactly knowing where things go in the little sheet, I'm pretty good on the general basics on that. Yeah. But it's probably insurance is one that I am the least knowledgeable about.
Food service.
Food service in the sense of ordering, but like I can run the heck out of a kitchen. So like it just depends on like what part of that you go. But like we're getting our cook back, and so like that honestly isn't like a huge like worry for me because I know our cook well, I work well with him, and so right now I'm feeling okay about that. But yeah, food service, she's kind of led like food service, the budgeting, insurance stuff, and then like our maintenance guy kind of has reported directly to her. And so kind of transitioning him a little bit to keep me in the loop and work together. Marie was gone for a chunk of the fall. And so that was a good transition to with him kind of starting that, him taking his direction from me. So.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you seem zen about it. So.
I mean, I think what she said is right. You figure it out, right? Like, I'm sure there's going to be some times that things don't go well. I'm not afraid of failure. I like, you're going to have some of that. And so then maybe I'm putting on a little bit too much zen. I don't know if I would totally think of myself as completely zen about it, but so far I haven't had any freakouts. So that's good.
Right. Well, Marie's feet were thrown to the fire when she was 28. And so she always has that hanging over everybody's head at Foley, right? Like
exactly. And I'm older than that, so I'll be fine.
So be prepared. She'll pull that out occasionally, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, one of Howie and I's favorite terms that I think is so accurate for camp business is necessity is the mother of invention. So when you have to, you'll just figure it out. And it's great that you have Marie to help. But yeah, all those things, you just kind of take them on the list and figure out, are you going to do this? Are you going to delegate? Are you going to find someone who knows what they're doing? So, but that's great. I'm glad. Marie, I'm just last question and then we'll do with wrap ups. Are you going to be at camp really at all this summer? Or are you going to not be a present figurehead at all at camp?
I think Allie has hired me to run our environmental education program in the spring, in May. I think we both feel and realize that the summer camp program, I have to be really more invisible and behind the scenes to allow Allie to take the helm and to really make sure staff and campers and everybody look to Allie. I can do weddings for her. I can do our environmental program because it's a totally different program. And in that capacity, she's not going to lose what I feel is very important for her this summer is to be that figurehead at camp. And being that figurehead at camp, not that I would love to come down and visit with the kids and do all that, but I'm going to have to step more just this year, or especially during our first session and get camp going or limit that coming down into camp. I live in the end of camp. So we're still trying to navigate that water, but that's kind of where we last ended in our conversation, is that we really need to, for the camp community and everybody, for everyone to see Allie as the person in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we have a pretty extended season. So we have people on site May 1 till October 1 with all of our different groups and things like that. And knowing myself, like I just mentioned before, if I feel too restricted, that can get tough. And that's a long season to be kind of the only like real adult around. So I think the idea of having her help with some of that shoulder stuff is going to be important. And this is a business podcast, so we can say too, like there is a value for her pulling a paycheck for another year with retirement benefits and things like that.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of with her age and stuff, we're navigating that part too, to make sure that she's getting the best out of her experience at camp and getting the best benefits and things out of working at Foley too. So,
well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that's part of the whole business succession transition is family members from the earlier generation maintaining a lifestyle, and how can camp provide that? And your mom's put in the time. So how do you do this? And I think that's a major consideration. And the fact that, you appear to have a wonderful appreciation for that is something that I think everybody in a similar situation has to consider. And I think, it sounds like this role, whatever it looks like, is going to fill Marie's bucket the way she wants it at this stage in her life, which is so amazing. So congrats for doing all of that.
There's a lot of institutional knowledge up there too that you can't lose. And so the best way to do that is slowly just kind of pull that out. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm looking forward to this year, I think.
Well, my day camp still has my daughter's 83-year-old grandfather helping bring in the buses every day.
There
So
you go.
it's just first of all, it's beautiful for camp. It's wonderful
Yes.
for your culture.
Mhm.
I don't think you ever want to lose that if you're in that position. And we're so grateful that they're able to do it and get to do it. So congratulations. I think that's wonderful.
Thanks. Yeah.
I really like that intentionality too of being able to say, what are the things that are really important for Allie to be that person for summer, but what are the things that Marie can still do that she knows, but also is helpful to you and helpful to this transition and ease out versus just a quick, you're done, Marie, out of here.
You're out. Yeah.
All right, wrapping up this topic, any other like sage wisdom for the people listening, either in a transition, thinking about it, any other tidbits you want to share before we wrap up?
I think a big one is just open communication with all the family members that have stakes in it, and to keep like talking and keep that conversation going, because you're going to have different opinions and that's okay. But I think if you're not talking to people and allowing other people to be part of the decisions, that's where you can get some bumps in the road.
Yeah, I was going to say communication for sure. And like flexibility, I think like she said, we had that person that we worked with 10 years ago. It didn't really get to an end point. And so being able to just say, scrap it and start over, I think was good for us. And so like being able to just be flexible in how you're doing it and understanding that, like you said, everybody's not going to have the same opinions, but also what do you want for your camp too? Like if the importance is continuing to have the camp operate, then you need to take steps in order to make that happen too. So I think keeping your camp's mission in mind is important as well.
Awesome. Well, lots of great wisdom. And hopefully if the people reach out to you, we'll include your contact information later. But I think you have a lot of really great experience to share and wisdom after going through it. All right. Should we move to our rapid fire questions, Howie? Okay. So
Absolutely.
we're Brene Brown fans, so we just borrow ideas. We're inspired. We're inspired, not borrowing. All right. So Howie and I are going to go back and forth with some rapid fire questions. So first one, Marie and Allie can quickly answer, each of you. What's your favorite camp meal?
Chicken fettuccine.
Pancakes.
Oh, nice. If you could lead any program area, what would it be?
Water skiing.
That was going to be mine. Mine is also water skiing. Stole it.
You guys could do a tandem show in the summer. Like,
there you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can see it. I can see it. All right. S'mores, burnt or golden brown or another option?
Not at all.
That's what I was going to say. I actually don't like s'mores.
Okay.
You
Whoa.
call yourself camp professionals.
It's
I
like
know. Hot take. Hot take.
hot take. We become like the TMZ of camp podcasts now, like things you didn't think you'd find on a podcast. Okay, great.
If I had to choose, I would say golden brown, because that's a great skill set and how to make it golden brown without burning it.
So you've both grown up at camp, but I'm curious, like, would you characterize yourself growing up as more of a homesick type of camper or a peace out parents, see you when I see you?
Oh, more of a peace out parent.
Yeah.
I was 100% the homesick kid, which is wild now because of how much I travel and stuff. But you can ask the Sheelys about when I went to Camp Sheely and was just homesick for the first week. So,
Yeah.
Wow, that surprises me.
yeah.
Well, I also think like in camp kids of camp directors too. I think I've had my own experience with that with one of my kids in our growing up with kids. So yeah, it's interesting. That's another episode. We could totally jump into that.
Yeah.
That would totally be a therapy session, and my friend Kelly would love that.
We would need to have a therapist on, I think, with you. Yeah. There you go.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. You want to do the last one?
Yes. Last question. So as a camp pro, are you happiest like in the office, on the phone, dealing with logistics? Or are you like, get me out in the action? I don't want to be in the office at all.
Definitely the action.
I'd rather be in the action.
Not phone people.
Okay.
That's why you have to hire good office people for your camps if you're that way, so that you don't. We have a wonderful one at Foley. So
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
See, Allie's already dishing out the wisdom. I love it. She's crushing it. It's amazing. The two of you, thank you so much. This, if we were going to have an extended length podcast, I just feel so good that we did it with the two of you to explore these two amazing topics and you sharing. It's been wonderful to meet you. If people in the camp world want to reach out, learn more about Foley and get to know you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Probably emails for now. So Allie,
Yep.
ALI at campfoley.com.
Or Marie@campfoley.com. And I just want to say
Amazing.
thank you for inviting us.
Yeah,
This was
definitely.
fun.
This
So
was
thank
great.
you very much.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Kelly, you can pick them. You can pick them. I tell you.
Well, thanks, Howie. No, these two have been instrumental in mentoring me. So they're phenomenal. So I'm glad you enjoyed it too. So my email is Kelly with a Y at hiddenpinesranch.com.
Amazing. And you can reach me at Howie at camprobinhood.ca or at Howie Grossinger on Instagram. Thanks to our sponsors, Camp Brain and Camptivities. We could not do this without them. Please don't forget that you can find all of our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod. You can find the resources that we mentioned in this episode and all the good stuff at all of the Go Camp Pro podcasts on the website. And we hope you really enjoyed it. We had a wonderful time in this conversation. Thanks to both of you. And we look forward to the next time you can join us on the Camp Owners Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Camp Owners Podcast. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on Apple Music or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, you can find our show notes at gocamp.pro/ownerspod. The Camp Owners Podcast is part of the Go Camp Pro Podcast Network. Find a podcast for camp pros of every age and stage at gocamp.pro/podcast. Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.